You know what's funny? They laughed at you. They thought you were just another face in the crowd, another quiet mind, another easy target. They made their little plans, whispered their little schemes, thinking they were 10 steps ahead. But here's the joke. You were writing the script the whole time. While they were busy setting traps, you were designing the maze. While they were playing checkers, you were playing chess. And while they thought they understood your silence, they had no idea they were standing inside your strategy. See, genius doesn't announce itself. It watches. It waits. It smiles in the shadows. And by the time they realized what you were capable of, it was already too late. They didn't just lose. They walked straight into your brilliance. Today, I'm going to show you why the quiet mind is the most dangerous one. Why underestimation is the biggest mistake people make. And how sometimes the real power belongs to the one nobody saw coming. Silence was never your weakness. It was your laboratory. While they were making noise, trying to prove themselves, trying to dominate conversations and fill every empty second with their meaningless confidence, you were doing something far more dangerous. You were observing. You were collecting patterns in their behavior, noticing how easily people reveal their intentions when they think nobody is paying attention. Every laugh they made at your expense, every moment they ignored your presence, every time they assumed you had nothing to offer, it all became data. And you never corrected them, because the greatest advantage a brilliant mind can have is being underestimated. You understood something most people never do. Noise exposes, but silence conceals, and concealed intelligence is far more powerful than advertised intelligence. Because when people think they understand you, they stop being careful. They become predictable, careless, honest without realizing it. They show their fears, their insecurities, their weak strategies. They reveal exactly how far they can think, and exactly where they stop thinking. And that's where you began. Your silence made them comfortable. It made them think they were superior. They mistook your patience for hesitation, your calmness for confusion, your observation for ignorance. But what they never realized was that every second you stayed quiet, your understanding grew sharper, like a blade being slowly sharpened in the dark. No sparks, no sound, just preparation. Most people react, you calculated. Most people spoke, you listened. Most people rushed, you waited. And waiting is something only the strong can do, because patience requires control over emotion. It requires the ability to sit in moments where your ego wants to prove something, but your mind knows the right time hasn't come yet. That level of restraint is terrifying because it means when you finally do move, it isn't emotional. It isn't accidental. It is precise. They never noticed how you were mapping their personalities. Who gets angry easily? Who follows the crowd? Who pretends confidence but fears pressure? Who talks too much when nervous? Who breaks when challenged? You saw it all because silence gave you vision. While they were busy trying to be seen, you were busy seeing everything. And the funny thing is, they probably thought you lacked confidence. That's always the first mistake people make about quiet strength. They think confidence is loud. They think power has to be visible. But real power doesn't perform. Real power doesn't beg for attention. Real power doesn't interrupt. It simply waits for the perfect moment to reveal itself. And when it does, it doesn't need to shout, because the impact speaks for itself. Your silence also protected your ideas, because when you don't reveal your plans, nobody can sabotage them. When you don't show your full capability, nobody prepares for it. You allowed people to believe comfortable lies about you. That you were average, that you were slow, that you were harmless. Because those lies became your camouflage. And camouflage is what predators use. not victims. There is also a certain psychological pressure that silence creates. People start to wonder what you're thinking. They start to project their own fears into your quietness. Your lack of reaction becomes more intimidating than any reaction, because humans fear what they cannot read, and you became unreadable. No unnecessary reactions, no emotional leaks, just composure. You turned emotional control into psychological dominance without saying a word. And when the moment finally came, when you decided to act, speak, or reveal even a fraction of your capability, it probably shocked them. Because in their story, you were never supposed to be the dangerous one. You were supposed to stay background noise. But silence has a strange effect. It creates distance between perception and reality. And when reality finally shows itself, the contrast feels explosive. That's the hidden joke. Silence is not empty. Silence is full of preparation, full of calculation, full of quiet evolution. While they thought nothing was happening, everything was happening. Growth was happening. Understanding was happening. Strategy was happening. Because sometimes the loudest proof of intelligence is having no need to prove it at all. They thought they had the upper hand, didn't they? They looked at you, and all they saw was someone ordinary, someone average, someone easy to manipulate. They assumed intelligence wears a flashy coat, shouts from the rooftops, or demands recognition in every room it enters. But what they didn't realize is that intelligence doesn't ask for attention. It commands it silently, invisibly, in ways that are almost terrifying to witness when the truth finally hits. They underestimated you because they judged the surface, the mask, the empty signals they were used to reading in everyone else. And that's the first mistake people make when they encounter someone truly cunning. They confuse modesty, calmness, or quiet observation with weakness, and in that misjudgment, they hand over control without even noticing it. Underestimation is a weapon. Most people panic when they sense danger, overreact when challenged, or try to overpower a situation before they even understand it. You, on the other hand, knew that people's assumptions are the most valuable information you can gather. Their confidence, their arrogance, their smug certainty, it all became raw material for your strategy. Every time they dismissed you, every time they laughed at what they thought was your simplicity, you were quietly cataloging, analyzing, predicting. You learned how they moved, how they spoke, how they reacted under pressure. And all of it painted a perfect map of their weaknesses, the places where they were fragile, and the cracks in the fortress they so proudly built. They never considered that someone underestimated could become the most dangerous variable in their calculations. They failed to see that genius thrives in the shadows, feeding off the ignorance of the crowd. While they were busy showcasing their knowledge, flaunting their superiority, and celebrating victories they thought were inevitable, you were doing the one thing they never even contemplated preparing. Every glance, every word, every subtle gesture of theirs became another piece of the puzzle, another step closer to the revelation that would break their certainty apart. And the beauty of it all is that they didn't even sense the trap forming because they were too busy feeling secure in their overconfidence. They assumed they could control the narrative, but control is only an illusion when someone else is quietly observing the threads of every interaction, every move, every motive. They thought they were teaching you lessons when, in reality, you were rewriting the lesson plan. They thought they were one step ahead, but in truth, your mind was 10 steps beyond, already anticipating their strategies, already constructing countermeasures, already calculating outcomes they hadn't even imagined. The more they underestimated you, the more powerful you became, because genius feeds on invisibility, on the ignorance of others, on the blank space they leave unguarded when they believe nothing of value is lurking there. And there's a certain poetic satisfaction in that, isn't there? Knowing that every sneer, every mockery, every dismissive comment they threw your way didn't weaken you. It strengthened you. Every underestimate, every wrong assumption they made about you became a fuel for your intellect. They were walking through your world blindfolded, and you were orchestrating everything from behind the curtain. Their arrogance was your ally. Their disbelief in your capability became the scaffolding of your success. People forget that genius is patient, and patience thrives when no one believes in you. You could watch, calculate, adjust, and wait for the exact moment when action would produce maximum effect. And when that moment finally arrived, when your subtle plans unfolded and their fragile confidence crumbled, it wasn't just victory, it was revelation. They saw, perhaps for the first time, that the person they overlooked, the person they underestimated, was the one who outmaneuvered them at every turn. They had assumed they knew you, but knowing someone is not the same as understanding the depths of their mind, and that gap, the yawning space between assumption and reality, is where genius thrives and where underestimation becomes the deadliest trap of all. Because underestimation is not merely a misjudgment, it is an invitation. It invites brilliance to step forward quietly, to operate under the radar, to manipulate the scene without detection, until the moment comes when the truth is undeniable, unavoidable, and utterly devastating. And in that quiet mastery, in that unseen strategy, lies the satisfaction that those who underestimated you will never forget the day they realized how wrong they were. It's not arrogance or showmanship that wins. It's the subtle, invisible, cunning mind that prepares, anticipates, and strikes when the world least expects it. And in their underestimation, they built the stage for your genius to shine, unaware that the brilliance they ignored was already orchestrating their downfall with every thought, every calculation, every patient second they dismissed as nothing. You didn't just see their traps. You transformed them into your playground. Every scheme they built, every carefully laid snare, every clever plan they thought would ensnare you, became a tool in your hands, a stepping stone to your advantage. They were so confident, so certain that the game was theirs to control, that they never stopped to consider how their own arrogance could be turned against them. They believed strategy was a one-way street, that traps only work on the unprepared, and that you were simply another pawn in their little world. But what they failed to understand is that true brilliance doesn't react. It adapts. Every obstacle they placed in your path became an opportunity to demonstrate the depth of your mind, to reveal how someone who understands the rules of the game can twist them until the board serves their purpose. It's a curious thing, watching people set traps for someone they underestimate. They create patterns, and patterns, when studied carefully, are predictable. They think they're being clever, that they've outmaneuvered everyone else, but what they don't realize is that they've left themselves exposed. Every trap has a signature, a tell, a fingerprint of its creator, and your mind notices it. You see where they've overcompensated, where their confidence falters, where their fear hides behind false bravado. And rather than stepping carefully around their snares, you walk straight into them, fully aware, fully in control, transforming the danger into an advantage they could never have imagined. They set limitations, but you converted them into freedoms. They tried to constrain your moves, but every rule they imposed became a ladder to climb higher, to see further, to operate in a dimension they couldn't comprehend. They thought they were building walls to stop you, but genius doesn't get trapped by walls. It uses them to redirect the path, to focus energy, to sharpen strategy. Every obstacle is a mirror reflecting their weaknesses, And the more elaborate their attempts to ensnare you, the clearer the pattern of their vulnerability becomes. Their traps, which were meant to control you, ended up highlighting your mastery. There is an art to turning someone else's plan against them, an art that requires patience, observation, and a mind that thrives in the shadows. It's not just about avoiding the snare. It's about understanding its construction, predicting its function, and exploiting its mechanics to serve your own purpose. The people who thought they were clever enough to outwit you were in fact performing the choreography that your mind had anticipated long before they even began. Every move they made, every action they believed would corner you, was folded neatly into your own scheme, repurposed to amplify your advantage, while leaving them blind to the reality of the situation. And there's a subtle psychological satisfaction in that, isn't there? Knowing that they created the very conditions that led to their own downfall, that they unknowingly played into your hands, that their confidence and overestimation became the instruments of their defeat. While they were busy trying to catch you, you were busy understanding them. You knew where their pride would blind them, where their logic would falter, where their impatience would betray them. And in every misstep they took, in every trap they believed was foolproof, you found a foothold, a lever, a pathway to turn the situation completely in your favor. This is the difference between reaction and mastery. Reaction is survival, improvisation, scrambling to avoid a mistake. Mastery is anticipation, calculation, seeing the end before the beginning even occurs. You didn't just avoid being trapped. You redefined the rules of engagement, made the traps irrelevant, and transformed the battlefield into a landscape where your brilliance dictated the outcomes. Every snare they set became a demonstration of your ability to not only survive, but thrive in the most hostile circumstances. In the end, it's almost poetic. The very mechanisms they built to catch you became the instruments of your success. They thought control was theirs, but in reality, it was yours all along. The world they crafted to ensnare you became the stage for your genius, the arena in which your mind could dance freely while they scrambled to keep up. Their traps were never a threat. They were a testament to your insight, your patience, and your ability to see beyond the obvious, to turn even the cleverest schemes into stepping stones on your path to triumph. And that's the subtle power of brilliance, not in avoiding the dangers set before you, but in bending them, twisting them, transforming them, until the very thing designed to limit you becomes the very force that elevates you beyond all expectation. Patience isn't just waiting. It's a weapon, a strategy, a form of control that most people can't even comprehend. While others rushed, panicked, and acted on impulse, you understood the silent power of delay. You watched them fumble, watched them overreach, watched them expose themselves with every hurried decision, every attempt to force an outcome before the time was right. The world rewards impatience with mistakes, and genius rewards patience with opportunity. You didn't need to react to every move, didn't need to prove yourself in every moment. Instead, you let events unfold, letting the chaos of others' arrogance work in your favor, knowing that when the time finally came, your response would be decisive, undeniable, and utterly overwhelming. Arrogance is fragile. It breaks under pressure. It trembles when confronted with control it cannot measure. And that's what patience gives you, the ability to observe fragility in real time, to see the cracks forming in people's confidence, to understand where they will falter when faced with pressure. Most people confuse action with progress, noise with influence. But patience allows you to see beyond the surface, to understand that the loudest moves often lead to the weakest outcomes. You could sit back, analyze, and let the overconfident make their errors, all while remaining calm, composed, and entirely unshaken. Each delay, each calculated pause, was a chance to let them dig their own holes, to let their own impulses betray them, to let your understanding of their weaknesses become sharper. With every second, they wasted thinking they were in control. Patience also tests others, and that testing is its own form of power. When someone is patient, it forces the impatient to reveal themselves. It forces them to act prematurely, to reveal their fears, their limitations, their desperation. People cannot maintain performance indefinitely without cracks appearing under scrutiny. And your patience allowed you to watch, to catalog, to understand exactly how and where those cracks would appear. You turned waiting into a laboratory, and every hasty decision they made became data, became fuel, became another thread you could pull to unravel the narrative they thought they controlled. There's an elegance in this approach. While others are busy reacting to events as they happen, you are orchestrating the timing, bending outcomes to your will without ever raising a hand. You understand that timing is the invisible hand behind every success, the silent force that determines whether a plan collapses or flourishes. Acting too soon risks exposure, acting too late risks irrelevance. But acting precisely when the moment demands it converts preparation into power. Patience is not inaction. It is controlled, deliberate preparation. It is a quiet assertion of dominance, a reminder that the one who waits can dictate terms when others can only respond. In addition, patience gives clarity. When the mind is not rushed, it sees patterns others overlook. It notices motives, predicts actions, anticipates missteps. While others are clouded by emotion, urgency, or the need for immediate recognition, your mind operates in a calm, precise space where every possibility is considered, every variable accounted for. And in that calm you find the leverage, the opening, the subtle advantage that makes the difference between surviving and dominating. Patience transforms waiting into observation, observation into strategy, and strategy into inevitable success. There is also a psychological impact. People underestimate those who wait, assuming passivity or weakness, and that underestimation becomes another tool in your arsenal. Their assumptions about you feed your advantage, because they cannot imagine that someone who does nothing for now is already thinking 10 steps ahead, calculating the exact moment when action will yield the greatest effect. They are blind to the fact that patience is not just a tactic, but a manifestation of superior understanding, the ability to manipulate time itself to your benefit, bending others' expectations until they align with your plan. Every delay, every silent observation, every unreactive moment becomes an assertion of control. While others rush and stumble, you are steady, composed, unshakable. You allow the world to reveal itself in its own time, and when the moment is finally right, you strike with precision, turning what seemed like inactivity into a display of unmatched power. The impatient have created the stage, and your patience allows you to perform on it flawlessly, turning their mistakes into your advantage, their arrogance into your pathway to victory, and their miscalculations into the proof of your superiority. Patience, in this sense, is both shield and sword. It protects you from impulsive error, it exposes the faults of others, and it magnifies the effect of every decision you make. It is the quiet dominance that only the disciplined mind can wield, the invisible force that separates those who stumble from those who control. It transforms restraint into strategy, observation into insight, and waiting into an inevitable triumph that leaves everyone else scrambling in disbelief. And through it all, patience teaches a subtle, devastating truth, that the one who can wait, watch, and calculate is never truly at the mercy of others. The world acts in haste, driven by impulse and ego, but you are steady, prepared, and unstoppable. Every rushed decision they make, every misjudgment born of impatience, feeds your advantage. until the moment arrives when their haste collapses under the weight of your calculated timing and their own arrogance, leaving them trapped in a reality you've already mastered. Your genius didn't just make you smart, it made you untouchable. While others scramble for recognition, scramble to assert dominance, scramble to prove themselves in ways that are visible, loud, and predictable, you operated on a different level entirely. You understood that real power isn't about being seen or heard. It's about being beyond reach, beyond expectation, beyond comprehension. People can try to block you, undermine you, manipulate circumstances against you. But when genius moves with precision and foresight, it creates a zone where interference becomes meaningless, where attempts at control are irrelevant, and where every step you take is calculated to stay several moves ahead of anyone trying to touch you. Being untouchable isn't arrogance, it's strategy. It comes from understanding the rules, the players, and the weaknesses in the system. While they are focused on the surface, on appearances, on immediate victories, your mind operates beneath the radar, seeing the currents they can't sense, anticipating patterns before they even form, and exploiting gaps they didn't even realize existed. Every challenge, every obstacle, every attempt to corner you becomes a reflection of their own limitations rather than yours, because your genius allows you to navigate complexity in a way they cannot follow. Their attacks are predictable, their strategies transparent, and in that predictability, your untouchable position is reinforced. And there's a psychological edge to being untouchable that few appreciate. People underestimate what they cannot affect. They assume if they cannot provoke a reaction, it must mean impotence or fear. And in that assumption lies their greatest vulnerability. While they struggle to manipulate, control, or influence you, your composure remains absolute. Every effort to impact your position becomes evidence of their own misjudgment. Every attempt to challenge your authority, intellect, or insight only reinforces the perception that you are operating on a plane they cannot access. That untouchability is not a shield. It is an assertion, a quiet declaration that the rules they live by do not bind you. Your brilliance operates invisibly but inevitably. It creates outcomes without drama, without spectacle, without needing approval. People see the consequences, not the calculations behind them, and they are left guessing how someone could be so consistently untouchable. That uncertainty is part of your advantage. It keeps them cautious, keeps them hesitant, keeps them second, guessing every move, while you remain confident, deliberate, and unshakable. Their misperception of your abilities amplifies your control, because the more they underestimate the depth of your genius, the freer you are to act without obstruction. Being untouchable also comes from timing, patience, and anticipation. It's not about reacting faster, it's about acting precisely. Every decision you make, every step you take, is calculated to avoid unnecessary exposure while maximizing impact. While they rush and stumble, trying to assert dominance, your patience allows you to strike at the perfect moment, in the perfect way, leaving them bewildered, frustrated, and unable to respond effectively. They believe they are in a game they can control, but your untouchable nature ensures that the rules of the game bend to your understanding rather than theirs. It's more than just skill. It's the ability to read people, situations, and systems, to predict moves before they happen, and to place yourself in positions where interference is impossible. Your intelligence acts as armor and as a weapon, making you impervious to attacks that would unbalance others. And it's not brute force, it's subtlety. The untouchable genius doesn't need to fight every battle, doesn't need to be visibly superior, doesn't need to dominate the conversation. They simply exist beyond the reach of mediocrity, navigating complexity effortlessly while everyone else scrambles to keep up. In addition, being untouchable feeds on perception. The more people see you as someone who cannot be influenced or contained, the more they hesitate, the more they doubt themselves, the more power shifts quietly into your hands. Your untouchable status forces others to miscalculate, to hesitate, to second-guess, creating an invisible advantage that compounds with every interaction. Genius, when untouchable, is not just about being ahead. It's about creating a space where others cannot even attempt to compete on your terms. And there is freedom in that untouchability. Freedom from manipulation, from limitation, from expectation. People try to tether you to outcomes, constrain your creativity, bind your decisions, but your genius makes such attempts futile. You move through situations with a kind of inevitability, where every potential attack, every criticism, every obstacle has already been accounted for, neutralized, or transformed into advantage. Your untouchable nature is both the result of preparation and the demonstration of mastery, a combination that ensures not only survival but dominance. Ultimately, being untouchable is the culmination of every skill, every observation, every calculated move you've made. It's the outcome of understanding timing, psychology, patience, and strategy better than anyone around you. It creates an aura that is more than confidence. It is inevitability, a force that others cannot breach, a reality where your brilliance is both untouchable and undeniable, where attempts to challenge you are already part of the story you've written, and where the world, whether it knows it or not, must adapt to your intellect rather than the other way around.